that part of town always has access problems in terms of the networks.
Here she is.
Oh, great. Fantastic. Okay. Whoops. Let me get back on the right screen. There we go. All right.
Hi, Gail.
Hi.
We see the top of your head.
Oh,
Oh, there you are. Hi, Gail.
well, that's the most important part. That's where the brain is.
I'm not going there.
Everybody all set? Okay,
How's that?
this meeting will come to order. This is Jill Spear, Chair of the West Hartford Library Board, and I'd like to welcome you to the virtual meeting of February 22nd, 2021. Because in-person attendance at public meetings is likely to increase the risk of transmission of COVID-19, this meeting is being conducted in accordance with Governor Lamont's Order 7B as extended by a number of different orders, including the recent one, 10A, which permits municipalities to conduct public meetings, virtually. Board members, some library staff are participating via a video conference facility, and members of the public view the meeting live on West Hartford Community Television or on West Hartford Community Comcast Channel 6, or Frontier Channel 609, or at whctv.org. This meeting is being recorded for on-demand viewing, which is available on the town and the library's websites. Because of the virtual format, there's some rules and procedures that we need to cover before the meeting begins. First, we ask that everyone mute their devices, including me. There we go. When you're not speaking. If you wish to be recognized, please raise your hand and I'll call on you. If you're participating via audio only, which we don't have anyone this evening, or if I do not call at you at the end of a debate, please unmute your phone and let me know that you need to be recognized. So should you have to drop to audio, that would apply. Second, pursuant to the executive order, all speakers must state their name and title each time they speak. Third, because of the difficulty in tallying votes, on video conference, we require that most votes be taken by roll. Fourth, a reminder to, if any participant has problems with their connection, you should immediately call Library Administrative Assistant Jenny Valensis, whose number you were provided with earlier, or text us and we'll pause the meeting and recess the meeting until the problem is resolved. If it can't be resolved quickly, we'll ask to call on the meeting using a phone only. I'll now call the roll and note the staff members who are participating. David Brandwine.
David Brandwine, board member, present.
Gail Crockett.
Gail Crockett, library board member here.
Ann Donovan.
Ann Donovan, library board member, present.
Kim Cohen.
Kim Cohen, library board member, present.
Jill Spear, library board chair, present. Also note that Carol Waxman, acting library director here, and Jenna Blesses, assistant and who's hosting the meeting this evening, is also in attendance. All right, great. Our first agenda item is approval of the consent agenda, items 3, 8AI, 8AII, and 8AIII. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Board recognizes Gail Crockett.
So moved. The board consent agenda.
Okay. Do we have a second? Board recognizes, chair recognizes, David Brandwine.
David Brandwine, board member, second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? So if there's no discussion, let's call the roll and take the vote. David Brandwine.
David board member. David Brandwine, board member, yes.
Gail Crockett.
Gail Crockett, library board member, yes.
Ann Donovan.
Ann Donovan, library board member, yes.
Kim Cohen.
Kim Cohen, library board member, yes.
And Jill Spear, library board member and chair, yes. The motion is passed. Thank you all. All right, tonight we'll begin with election of officers for the new year of the library board. I believe we have a motion for the slate of officers has been formed, and Kim, you were going to put into motion for this, to read the slate of officers and make the motion?
Yes, so would you like me to read the proposed slate as well?
Yes, do you mind?
No problem. So Kim Cohen, Library Board Member, I move that we discuss and approve the following slate of officers, proposed slate of officers. Chair, Jill Spear, Vice Chair, Gail Crockett, and Secretary, David Brandwine.
Kim has read the slate of proposed slate of officers and made a motion for their acceptance. Do we have a second? Brandwine has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion? All right, I'll call the roll and take the vote. David Brandwine,
David Brandwine, board member, yes.
Gail Crockett,
Gail Crockett, Library Board Member, yes.
and
Ann Donovan, Library Board Member, yes.
Kim Cohen.
Kim Cohen, Library Board Member, yes.
Jill Spear, Library Board Member and Chair, yes. And thank you to Gail and David for continuing to serve on the board as an officer. Thank you. Our next agenda item is, I want to, as part of the chair's report, remind the public of the procedure for making comment on the library board agendas. Okay, and this has been available for actually a number of years, but I want to remind the public that they can provide input to the library board by emailing us at board@westhartfordlibrary.org. That's BOARD at, all one word, westhartfordlibrary.org. And that's the official way to get in contact with the board if you have any questions or concerns, or if you have comments on the library board agenda. That's part of our official record. So thank you. Our next agenda item in the chair's report is, I'm sorry to say that Anne will be leaving us at the end of the month, and I want to thank Anne for stepping in as a library board member, filling out the term originally taken up by Kelly Clark. And I want to thank her even more so for taking on a new term during calendar year 2020 to ensure continuity. So she extended past filling out that other term that she was filling out and stayed on and was willingness to help us have continuity during a very difficult year. And so really, Anne, it's been wonderful to have you. Your interest in serving the community by ensuring all members of the community are aware of and utilize the outstanding shared services provided by the library has certainly been the hallmark of your interest and work. And we're thrilled that you're willing to continue your leadership in this role with Gail Crockett and the outreach initiative as part of the West Hartford Library Foundation. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you've done, Anne.
Thank you, Jill, and thank you, everyone. It has been a pleasure. I have enjoyed this so much. I love the commitment and the passion that all of you showed to the community and to this wonderful library that we are so grateful to have in our community. And Gail, I really enjoy working with you on the outreach, and I'm looking forward to continue doing so. And Jill, I want to thank you for all you have done through these times with keeping us on that right path and getting so much accomplished. Thank you. And Carol, thank you so much for your dedication and stepping up and filling in as interim. And it's a pleasure. And you always inform us so well of all the going on in the library. Thank you again for everything. And thank you, Janet, for everything. Yeah, and Kim and David, it's been a pleasure. And Gail, thank you.
Well, you're not getting away from us entirely. Thank you for staying in the outreach committee and leading that effort with Gail. You're quite the dynamic duo there. So it's like a marriage made in heaven. The two of you were meant to find each other on the library board. So again, thank you. We have no old business tonight, but we have a couple items under new business. The first is a modification to the standard library calendar. As you know, Since we've been having these virtual meetings, we've been holding them as special meetings, which means we haven't been using the standard library calendar. We've been using, almost always, we've been trying to have the same day of the month that was on our standard calendar to make it more convenient for members and staff, but we've been having it at a different time. After consulting with council, thank you, Janet, we found a way to adhere to a standard library calendar. And after soliciting the board members, we'd like to change the start times, keep the same days that we'd already previously approved, but move the start time in this standard calendar to 6:30. You know, obviously for the foreseeable future, we're going to be continuing to have virtual meetings, and we're just more efficient. Less chatting, I guess, on the virtual meetings. So 6:30 seems to work well, especially for those members who are still working day jobs during this time. It works out better. So do I have a motion to move the standard type time? Chair recognizes Gail Crockett. Gail, you're on mute. Can anybody hear Gail? Gail, you're up.
Can you hear? Can you hear me?
Yes, now. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that, everyone. I, Gail Crockett, Library Board Member, make a motion to change the start time of the West Hartford Public Library Board meetings from 6 o'clock to 6:30, effectively in March of 2021.
Thank you, Gail. Do we have a second? David?
David Brandwine, board member, second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, a motion is made and seconded. We'll now call the roll for approval of the motion. David Brandwine?
David Brandwine, board member, yes.
Gail Crockett?
Gail Crockett, Library Board Member, yes.
Ann Donovan?
And Donovan, Library Board Member, yes.
Kim Cohen?
Kim Cohen, Library Board Member, yes.
And Jill Spear. Jill Spear, Library Board Member, Chair, yes. Thank you all. So basically, we're going to be doing what we've been doing, but it'll be a little bit simpler for all the people that have to do the scheduling in town for all the videos, etc., and Access TV. So thank you for that. Our next agenda item under new business is the Smart Locker project. And the chair recognizes Acting Director Carol Waxman to talk about that project.
Good evening, Carol Waxman, Acting Library Director. It is my pleasure to update you on the Smart Locker project. A committee has begun a study to use smart lockers, a system that will allow patrons the flexibility to pick up holds from a locker outside the library building. Patrons would be able to pick up their holds even when the library is closed. A smart locker system is a combination of individual storage containers, electronic smart lock hardware, and identification hardware, and software applications for managing access. The Smart Locker Project Committee is comprised of Jill Spear, Library Board Chair, Anne-Marie Salerno, Circulation Supervisor, Jen Francis, Technology Services Librarian, Karen Polmatier, Branch Operations Manager, and Carol Waxman, Interim Library Director, as well as 2 members of the community who bring additional technology experience and add community linkage to the initiative, Dave Rollins and Chuck Nicholas. Potential sites for the smart locker installations at all library buildings have been visited and approved by Town Planner Todd Dumais and Zoning Enforcement Officer Brian Pudlick. There is a pandemic-driven demand for contactless interactions. The implementation and integration of the system would be a factor in deciding how services will be delivered post-pandemic. It is far simpler for patrons to pick up items totally at their convenience, safely and securely. It is expected that curbside service will be in place post-pandemic and into the future. Our patrons have become accustomed to the convenience of curbside pickup, and we have received many accolades about this service. Overall, we have booked almost 26,000 curbside appointments via this delivery method since the beginning of June 2020. With the installation of smart lockers outside of the library buildings, patrons would continue to place items on hold, either through the online catalog or by calling the library and speaking to a staff member. Once the requested item is available for pickup, items would be placed in the smart lockers outside of the buildings for pickup at the convenience of the patron. The lockers can eventually be installed at all 3 West Hartford locations, with the one at Bishop's Corner being the first to use as a prototype, and so that we can review the success of the project before expanding it to other library buildings. Some of the advantages of smart lockers: will extend curbside pickup times beyond normal library operating hours. This will be advantageous to those whose schedules don't allow them to pick up materials during normal operating hours or on Saturdays or Sundays due to religious reasons. Will increase privacy so no others will see the items being picked up. Will allow for the opportunity to self-serve, such as in stores. Will help to prevent theft. It is much safer to have materials secured in the lockers awaiting pickup by the person who ordered them. Will provide operational continuity by offering climate-controlled environments and a solution to curbside tables being outside in rain or snow, causing damage to materials. Will reduce touch points, particularly when using a smartphone application. Any person with a library card in the West Hartford Public Library system will have access to smart lockers. People requiring this service in hours other than when the libraries are open, such as evenings and weekends, will have full access to their holds at a schedule that will work for them. The ability to flex pickup hours will result in expanding the program to those who could not use it previously. The lockers will also be available to those patrons who do not feel comfortable re-entering our buildings, but still want and need access to library materials. We are looking for multiple sources of funding. We have applied to the West Hartford Greater Together Fund from the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving with a letter of intent to request submittal of a grant proposal. We also plan to request funding from the West Hartford Library Foundation and any other community sponsorship. Thank you.
Jill, you're muted.
Jill, I'm sorry if you're asking me a question. I cannot hear you.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, I didn't
Nope.
realize I was still on mute. Sorry. Okay. So we're looking for the library board to make a motion for the library to proceed with the investigation around their first steps in this project. And I believe, Ann Donovan, you have, you're going to make a motion?
Yes, I would make a motion and to proceed, but to have a conversation about some questions that I have regarding it.
Okay. All right. So you make a motion to embark on the initiative, and then we'll have a discussion after the second.
Yes,
Okay. Chair recognizes Kim Cohen.
Kim Cohen, I second the motion.
All right. A motion is made and seconded. Any discussion? So Chair recognizes Ann.
Ann Donovan, library board member. Carol, how many lockers would be placed at Bishop's Corner? I'm sorry if I'm not following the thread, but for like feasibility study purposes, how many lockers would be placed at Bishop's Corner to see the patronage commitment to this, to see how it would be used, the interest in it?
Thank you, Ann. Carol Waxman, Interim Library Director. We don't know as yet. This is something that the committee will review when it's closer, when we have more information. We will have a meeting soon and talk with our community partners who are the scientific, who are looking at the scientific piece of this. So I will definitely get that information to you after that is decided.
Chair recognizes Kim Cohen.
Kim Cohen, Library Board Member. I apologize if this is in the materials, but I didn't get a sense of the cost. I think it's a great idea. I'm really excited as someone who struggled to get to the library during business hours and finds it very difficult to arrange a curbside pickup now in the windows. I think that this is a great service, certainly in the pandemic and moving forward. And I think it really, your summary was very helpful, and it seems like a very promising idea, but I would just, what's the ballpark of cost? I mean, I'm sure it depends on some details to be worked out, but could you kind of give us a little more information on that?
Of course, Carol Waxman, Interim Library Director. The reason I did not mention the cost, Kim, is there's such a wide range. Some of the locker systems are about $24,000, ranging up to $48,000, depending on which type and how many. So once the committee makes a recommendation, I will absolutely let you know the range, the cost range.
And is this something that's purchased or leased from the provider? I mean, what's the commitment if there's not a lot of use, which I would be surprised that, you know, are we only locked in for a year, or how do those arrangements work?
I believe we are looking at purchasing, not leasing, but anything is possible.
And then, so these are like Amazon lockers, the vendors, there's the actual people that engineer them, right? There's only like a handful of companies that create these lockers. Then they're labeled, you know, with the services packaged with different things. And like Carol says, it's all over the board, Kim, in terms of price. About, you know, if you are in some states, maybe you don't care about that your stuff in the library is heated. You're in the locker, you know, it's having temperature controls, which we certainly know after the sign out front of the library how temperature controls are, you know, important here. There's different levels of security you can put on them in terms of camera ready and sort of thing. So if I'm understanding from the committee's work, is this is the feasibility stage to kind of lay out the requirements beyond the concept, but the details of the requirements, and vet those with the community, including sort of return on investments in terms, and the return on this case, of course, would be utilization. You know, if you think about one of the parts of the return on investment is if you thought of the hours of availability and actual use of those, if you had to staff a library building, even at minimal staff, that's what you would be balancing their utilization against. You know, minimal staff in the building open for that utilization. So that's the comparison, what would cost. And then to answer one of your questions, they're very complicated. Some of them integrate with the integrated library systems, so they can actually automate the checkout and check-in kind of capabilities. Some even have a return capability where it's sort of like a book drop, but it auto checks in and it's integrated in your system. Hence Carol's comment about it's all over the place in terms of what capabilities there are and what we're willing to do. And I believe, just to endorse what Carol's saying, is because there's definitely, as a concept, it fills a need. It's the how far do we go, and so therefore the approach is a feasibility study, and then like a beta test. Even if, you know, beyond the feasibility study, if we move forward, a beta test at one site. Chair recognizes hand. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Kim.
I had my turn. I don't need to hug. I was just going to say, do you have to have a service plan, or does someone have to get trained on it?
Yep. And there has to be even, I'll just finish that one. There has to be a whole rollout to the community. You know, just even to use an Amazon locker. A lot of people don't necessarily use those or aren't aware of, and they don't all work exactly that way. Some are like the QR codes, some are like keypads, some are combinations, some have voice, so that if they can be accessible for the blind, you know, so it's all that. There are lots of options. It's interesting. Anne and then David. So Anne, Chair recognizes Anne.
Thanks. Hi, Ann Donovan, Library Board Member. So it's one locker per patron, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and the feasibility study would then find out the need for how many lockers you would need.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious about that. Thank you, Carol.
If I can just add one more thing to that, Carol Waxman, Interim Library Director. there are so many ways that the lockers can open and patrons can access them through their phone, through their library card, through a code that's sent to them. All of that has to do with the cost. And the study will be particularly about the Bishop's Corner branch because that is the area of town that we feel might need it the most because that's the busiest curbside area. So all of this is in question and we will definitely have more information for you soon.
And David, I believe you had a question.
Yeah, thanks, Jill. David Brandwine, Library Board member. So Carol, recognizing that we really have no sense of what the range of costs is, understandable. Do you expect that some percentage of the cost, whatever it might be, if we go forward, is going to be covered out of the library budget? And are we putting a line item in that for the upcoming fiscal year?
I'm going to defer to Jill on that. She's checking.
And actually, I flip-flopped and I saw my schedule scrolling down on my screen here. So we'll get to the budget and Carol will be talking about it. But my understanding, so Carol, capital improvements, I believe that's the right term, are not funding for the entire town. They're being very held frozen for most capital budgets. So this Carol's comment about seeking funding from the foundation or the Greater Hartford Foundation, you've already filed a letter of intent, the West Hartford Library Foundation, and potential some other community foundations and or private individuals willing to fund this. It could be a significant cost depending on the range. And we certainly had fundraisers for things like this before. So that's part of the feasibility too. Can we get enough funding to fund it? Because we do not expect that the town, certainly as an initial investment, is going to fund it in the fiscal year 22 budget.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Chair recognizes Kim Cohen.
Kim Cohen, Library Board member. I'm just thinking about it in real time. Is there, just what you said, Carol, was so interesting about the different methods of entry. And of course, the feasibility study will inform what we think makes sense in terms of cost versus features, I'm sure. But I was just thinking in terms of the population who would be taking advantage of this service, is it one that might, my gut reaction is perhaps it's younger, more tech-savvy people who, have schedules that don't allow them to, where this would be a value add to them. But do we have to be worried about smartphones being a barrier to entry to being able to take advantage of this service? And so maybe wanting to be able to just do something with the library card, or maybe those patrons are more apt to want to come in anyway. I don't know, I'm thinking out loud, but I'm just wondering if, I guess it's not so much a barrier to entry for those services because this is just sort of an add-on of an additional way to take advantage of the services outside of the scope of what was provided before. But I just wondered if that's something maybe that's just something that needs to be thought about in connection with the feasibility study.
Yeah.
Right. If I might answer that, Carol Waxman, Interim Library Director. Absolutely, Kim. We don't want to have any technology that needs to open that excludes any part of our patronage. We want everybody to have access. So we will definitely take everything into consideration. Certainly, we would never require a smartphone because we know many people do not have them. Thank you for that. That's important.
And Jill Spear, Library Board Chair, I'm not sure if it's clear. It's not an either or in some of these configurations. You can have multiple ways to access. So you could have a keypad and a smartphone, and there's even some that are voice activated. You speak the code. It's sort of like PayPal, where you have a code per interaction, right? Some of them, so you can speak your code, so that provide some accessibility answers to some accessibility concerns. So a lot of things to be explored.
I think it's very exciting. Thanks for your efforts on this, Carol, and all the members of the committee on this.
Thank you, Kim.
Okay, any other questions for Carol? So we have a motion in place by Ann, and I believe it was seconded by Kim for the library staff and their committee, including the community members, to move forward with the feasibility study. I will now call the roll. David Brandwine?
David Brandwine, Library Board Member, approve the motion.
Gail Crockett
Gail Crockett, Library Board Member, I approve the motion.
and Donovan
And Donovan, Library Board Member, I approve the motion.
and Kim Cohen
Kim Cohen, Library Board Member, I approve the motion as well.
and Jill Spear, Library Board Member and Chair. I approve the motion as well. Thank you very much. And thank you for the questions about this. A lot of unknowns, but a lot of interesting promise. Okay, I'm going to flip back because I inadvertently scrolled too far ahead and missed the old business item, which is the budget. The chair recognizes Acting Library Director Carol Waxman to give us an update on the fiscal year 22 budget.
Carol Waxman, Acting Library Director. It is my pleasure to update you on the library budget. The Department of Library Services proposed fiscal year 22 budget, which was equal to the previous fiscal year's budget, was submitted for initial review by the Department of Financial Services in January. The second round of reviews this month has a proposed budget reduction of 3.6%, or $118,905 from the fiscal year 21 adopted budget. The number of authorized positions will remain the same as fiscal year 21. However, the town is limiting hiring for a number of open positions across the town as part of the overall financial strategy to limit potential tax increases during the pandemic. Additionally, the town is canceling a number of planned smaller capital projects. Adjustments to the detailed budget line items will be developed to align with the proposed budget reduction. The library has been authorized to fill the open position in reference in order to continue support for the extraordinary community use. Essential work for other open positions is being covered by existing staff, including our part-time workforce, that enables the library to flex and address demand. Impact will continue to be assessed as the library operation is adjusted throughout the pandemic. The town's entire proposed budget will be presented to the town council on March 9th. The Finance and Administration Committee and town manager will be leading detailed department reviews with the town council. The town council's public budget hearings are currently scheduled for March 23rd and April 26th. And that concludes the update.
Do we have any questions for Carol about the revised budget proposal? I see no questions, so let's move on to the director's report. So the chair recognizes Acting Director Carol Waxman to give us the current monthly briefing.
Carol Waxman, Acting Library Director. I'd like to talk to you first about the vaccination information line and our volunteer service. In partnership with West Hartford Social Services, the senior centers, and the West Hartford Bloomfield Health District, the West Hartford libraries have created and are offering a vaccine information line for callers to receive information about the COVID-19 vaccines. This service began on February 8th. The phone line is staffed from 10 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon daily and 10 to 1 on Saturday, and will remain open until residents no longer need this service. To date, we have received about 460 calls with questions ranging from how to register for and receive the vaccine, how to schedule a homebound appointment in which paramedics administer doses in the resident's home, who is eligible in what phase to receive the vaccine, and many more topics. Callers are told that if their inquiry cannot be resolved by library staff, the call will be returned within 24 hours by a specialist in another department, and that they will have a plan of action to resolve their problem. Adult reference librarians are staffing the lines answering all questions that they are able to, and leaving questions that are not fully answered in a call log for staff from the Senior Center, Social Services, the Fire Department, or the West Hartford Bloomfield Health District to follow up and complete the call. We have also asked our part-time reference librarians to work extra hours to staff these lines, and who are paid from a special town COVID-19 reimbursement fund. The West Hartford Vaccination Information Line has received publicity from newspapers and television news. We have been interviewed and photos have been taken both at the vaccine clinic, where some of our full-time staff are volunteering, and in the library at the reference desk. 4 of our full-time library staff continue to volunteer on Thursdays and Friday mornings at the vaccine clinics at Town Hall or in other clinics as needed. The West Hartford libraries combined have had over 1,000 browsing and computer tech appointments so far this month. Curbside pickups are nearing 26,000 since the inception of this service. Get your library card, it's free. The West Hartford Libraries launched a campaign in February to encourage town residents to register for library cards and to take advantage of a growing collection of digital resources, a diverse array of virtual programming, access to academic journals and databases, digital streaming platforms, and access to newspapers and magazines. Through a series of videos professionally produced that feature library patrons and staff, filmed both pre and post-pandemic, the videos encourage all town residents to get a library card. Over 5,100 people opened the Get Your Library Card video that the library sent out on February 6th. The first few days after the videos launched via our newsletter, website, and Facebook, 50 town residents applied for library cards, and many requests are still coming in. The videos were made possible by a grant from the Thomas F. Kilfoyle bequest from the West Hartford Public Library Foundation. During the pandemic, we're more than just books. Since the coronavirus outbreak in March 2020, the West Hartford Public Library staff have worked tirelessly to offer critical services to the West Hartford community through curbside service, virtual programming, safe computer and browsing appointments, and by answering a record number of calls to connect patrons to the services they need. In the almost 12 months since the pandemic hit, we have processed almost 1,500 library cards, which is hundreds more than the library typically processes in a single year. In September alone, we processed 286 cards. Loans on downloadable materials increased dramatically, with 180,000 digital loans, a sharp increase from the 87,000 from 2 years ago. The new website, launched in December, makes it simpler for patrons to access academic databases, digital streaming partners such as Hoopla and Acorn TV, and online classes. We are about to launch a partnership with Canopy, a streaming service offering critically acclaimed movies and TV shows. The town of West Hartford is exploring a mural painting depicting diversity, equity, and inclusion along Webster Walk. Details will be forthcoming. The Bishop's Corner Library has been dealing with a leak in the ceiling for some time now that leaks into the staff restroom and other areas of the building. There have been several diagnoses, including the roof seams and plumbing problems. There has now been a final diagnosis that some seams in the roof have popped. These are now being fixed, and the ceiling tiles and walls affected will be replaced or repaired. Notable programs in February for adults featured the House of Blues, American Music, Recycling, Waste, and the Environment, Lessons from Apartheid, How Civil Rights Activists and Abolitionists Can Teach Us Lessons, Connecticut African American Heroines, and a Birch Branches Paint Night. All of these were attended with between 28 and 96 people. Teens created hot cocoa bombs and are making tutorial videos on how to create these. Children's programs included the Science of Superheroes, a chess club, and for Black History Month, an art program in which children ages 6 to 8 were invited to create a collage. Valentine's Day surprise bags were distributed at the curbside tables in all library buildings. These contain a craft and sweet treats. Some families sent photos of their children completing the crafts. Children's staff filmed programs for children introducing letters, rhymes, finger plays, and more. New Brainy Bundles, which are packets of nonfiction books on a topic bundled together, featured books on activism, family traditions, and perseverance. Andrew Pirro has been selected as the new Adult Services Librarian, a position opened by the retirement of Agatha Monahan. Andrew began employment as a substitute reference librarian in 2017, becoming a full-time staff member in 2019. He was previously a library media specialist in Granby and an English teacher in Coventry. Andrew holds a BA and an MA in English, as well as a master's in library science. Andrew has played an active role on the Kilfoyle Committee, assisting the programs and publicity team by running adult programs, managing the West Hartford Reads program scheduled for October 2021, teaching technology classes, contributed to the newsletter and social services, and working with the committee on the plan to reopen the libraries to the public during the pandemic by creating logs for curbside appointments and library visits. He has worked with social services and the health district to format the vaccination information line. Andrew will begin a term on the Connecticut Digital Library Advisory Board, representing our library and collaborating with professional colleagues across the state to enhance digital resources. Our recruitment for an Adult Services Librarian 1 to replace Andrew is currently in place, with an application deadline of March 12th. The position has been posted in the Connecticut Library Consortium and the Connecticut State Library sites, as well as the Black Caucus of the ALA and the Asian Pacific Librarians Association. A panel of reference librarians from surrounding area libraries will serve as interviewers. The percentage of libraries open to the public for browsing and computer appointments in the state of Connecticut has recently risen from 63 to 68% open, and we are proud to be among those buildings. Open hours for browsing and computer appointments at the Noah Webster Library will be extended from 2 to 5 p.m. on Fridays beginning March 5th. This means that on Fridays we will be open from 10 to 5. Future extended hours will be reviewed in early spring. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Carol. Questions from board members or comments on any of the items Carol went over? Chair recognizes David Brandwine.
Just a comment that I am constantly reminded how wonderful our library is and our library staff. That's all. I know that among those staff who have been helping out on the COVID stuff is Janet Valensis, who's on this screen. So thank you, Janet, and thank everybody else. But we should be very proud of everything our library does. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. That's much appreciated, and I will definitely tell the staff.
Other questions or comments? All right, going down. That is our last agenda item. Our next meeting is scheduled for March 22nd. It will now be at 6:30. And do I have an emotion? It is 7:15. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Chair recognizes Dave Brandwine.
David Brandwine, board member and motion king, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Do we have a second? Chair recognizes Kim Cohen.
Kim Cohen, Library Board Member. I second David's motion.
All right. Motion is made and seconded. David Brandwine, call the roll. David Brandwine, sorry.
David Brandwine, Board Member, yes.
Gail Crockett,
Gail Crockett, Library Board Member, yes.
Ann Donovan,
Ann Donovan, Library Board Member, yes.
Kim Cohen,
Kim Cohen, Library Board Member, yes.
and Jill Spear, Library Board Member and Chair, yes. Thank you all for meeting, and we'll see you here same time next month.
Stay well.
Very well. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.